Hello everyone, it's Kesui here. When I was making my current game, I reached a point where I needed to organize all my menus, levels, and scenes. I thought it would be pretty easy and there would be a standard way to handle levels in GODOT, but I did not find one. I tested multiple ways to handle them, some from the GODOT official documentation or examples, some from famous tutorials, but none of them was generic enough to fit any game and use cases. So after days of research and testing, I think I finally found what I consider the best way to handle all of this, and I'm gonna share it with you today. You will see that it's pretty convenient and generic to fit any game, but also remains future-proof. So let's get started. So here we are in GODOT 4.4. I have set up a tiny project with 4 different scenes. The first one is a main menu, because this is what most games have. I also added an ending screen, so this is the screen that you will see when you finish the game. And between them we have 2 levels. First, the level 1 in blue, with a tiny cube in the center. And when I touch this cube, you can see that there is a tiny log printed on the console that just detects when the player touched this cube. This is going to be what we will consider as the goal of the level. And then you have the level 2. It's exactly the same, except that it's more in red, but yeah, with the same cube, that is the goal of the level that the player must reach. So what we're gonna try to build is a very simple loop where we can go from the main menu to the level 1, then touch the cube, be in the level 2, touch the cube, and finish the game. So yeah, first, let's create a script that we will call Scene Manager and select C#. I think that everything that I will say in this video will also be totally valid for GDScript, but in my case, I use C# most of the time. But yeah, you can easily translate it. Feel free in the comments to tell me if you cannot follow it. So yeah, the goal of the Scene Manager will be to handle everything regarding the levels. So we want only one instance for that. So that's why we're going to use a singleton. That means that in any scene, only one instance of this object can be instantiated. So that's how we create a singleton, by referencing the instance first, and then on the ready method, you can assign this instance to the new object created. And then let's create a new method called loadLevel that will take a UID as a parameter. And that's very important. That's where this method is, I think, better than the others, is because we are using UIDs in order to manage our scenes and not the path like most of others tutorials and resources. If you don't know what UIDs are in GODOT, basically you have 2 ways to locate a file. First, using the path of the file, and secondly, using a UID generated by GODOT. And the difference between them is that the path depends on the location of the file, where the UID never change at all. So that's better because whenever you will move your scene somewhere, the UID will remain the same, unlike the path. So that makes it a bit better because if you want to reorganize your files, you are totally allowed to do it. Another thing you would like to avoid is to write every different UIDs in different parts of the code. In fact, you would like to have one source of truth for all your UIDs. Because if you want to use a different scene for the main menu, you don't want to go in every different script where you were referencing the UID of the main menu and change them one by one. So just above the Scene Manager, we are going to create another class that we are going to call simply Scenes. Inside of it, in order to make things organized, we will create another class called Menu. And we will just reference the UID of the main menu. But how do we get the UID of the main menu scene? Well, that's pretty simple. Go back in the GODOT editor, right-click, and select Copy UID. And now, paste it inside the new script. Alright, now let's see how we can use it. Go back to the credit scene. Let's create a script that will be used in this scene. So that's going to be a very simple script that we will have at the root of the scene. When we will click on the button, it will trigger the signal pressed that we will connect to the function we just created. So if we click on play, we can see that we have some logs. Now let's modify this function to change the level when we click on the button. So instead of printing something, I will just call scenemanger.instance.loadLevel, and in order to get the menu, I will type scenes.menu.mainMenu. The other benefit of this method is that you have all your UIDs in the same place. I highly suggest you to do not type the UIDs by hand in a script. Always go through the scenes class. That way, if you want to make a change or replace a scene by another, you have only one place to modify. But now, if you try to run the game and click on the button, you will have an error. And that's because the scene manager we created before is not assigned to any node. And since we want this instance everywhere in our game, we are going to make it a singleton. One way to do that in GODOT is very easy, is to use autoload. So go under project settings, autoload, and select the script, scenemanager.cs. Okay, now if we retry, we click on the button, we can see that we go back to the menu correctly. Awesome. So yeah, now we were able to switch between two menus and we are going to handle the levels. However, we don't want to use the same technique for the levels. The reason is that the levels are using numbers in order to be referenced. In other words, I have my level 1, level 2, level 3, and I just want to take the current number of the level and go to the next one. I don't want to name my levels. Of course, you could reuse the same technique if your game was using different name locations. But in my case, since I'm using numbers, I'm going to show you a different technique. And before we go further, I just want to tell you that I have less than 5 subs on YouTube, so that would be awesome if we could reach 10 subs at the end of this video. So please consider subscribing. That being said, let's continue. So back in the script, create a read-only collection that you will call levels. Basically, that's just a list of strings that you cannot modify. And that's great because we don't want any other script to modify our list of levels. Then, what we have to do is just to copy-paste the UID of our levels inside of it. And yeah, that's pretty much all. Let's try to instantiate the level 1 from the main menu. So just like the credit scene, I will create a tiny script where we will be able to press the button and switch to the level 0. And as you can see, just like before, I call my scene manager instance, but instead of putting scenes.menu.mainMenu, I will type scenes.levels and add the number of the level. In my case, that's the number 0 because we want the first level. And now, if we connect this button to the script, just like we did for the credit scene, we can switch from the main menu to the level 1. Perfect. Alright, so now we are able to go back from the credit scene to the main menu, and from the main menu to the level 1. But how do we handle the transition between the level 1 to the level 2? Because right now we only have 2 levels for the example, but if you have 20 or 40 levels, you don't want to type in your code level 2 explicitly, level 15 explicitly. You just want to say, okay, I want to go to the next level, no matter what it is. So we are going to handle the final step of the scene manager script. Basically, we are going to detect in which level we are and say we go to the next level, okay? In a newly created getCurrentLevel method, you are going to get the current node of the level. Then you will use some GODOT helpers to get the UID of the current level. So you will use the resource level to get the UID as a long, and then use the resource UID and the ID to text method to get the UID in the format that we want. Now that we have the UID of the current level, we just have to iterate over all our levels, and if we find a new UID that match the current one, we just return the index. I will also add an error log and return -1 in case there is something that went wrong during the process. So now I'm opening the script that will tell us if the player touched the cube or not, and I will modify it. So as you can see, it was a basic script. When we enter inside the cube, we just add a tiny print, and I will start to add the logic. So first, let's get the current number of the level. Then we check if this is the last level or not, because if that's the case, what we want is to go to the credit scene because there is no next level. And if that's not the case, we will just load the next level. Now let's write the whole loop to see if the system is working or not. So from the main menu, I can go to the level 1. If I touch the cube in the level 1, I go to the level 2. And if I touch the cube in the level 2, I will go to the credit scene. And that's exactly what we want. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If that's the case, please consider subscribing. I don't have a lot of subs on YouTube, so that will be awesome. And I hope to see you next time in the next video.